Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's not quite 7 o'clock, but there's no reason for us to not get together and go forward. Looks like most of the people who are going to come tonight have arrived. And, I welcome you. I'm David Vogel, County Judge, and I assume that at least most of you here know me, and I appreciate all of you taking the time to come tonight. How we're going to work this here is that this was an idea suggested by Larry Kaiser over here. And they have a community forum, public forum about community public safety issues. Public safety is a pretty wide topic when you get into it. Could range, from fireworks to water service to police service to schools to health department. There's a lot of things that strike each of us as something involved with public safety. So tonight we're going to try to answer the questions that people have. A few questions were submitted to us during the last week or 10 days. We did ask people to try to submit questions, but we're here tonight to try to answer questions. I didn't ask our panel members here to get up and be prepared to make a speech. I did ask them to be prepared to try to respond clearly and openly to the questions that the people in our community have. One of the individuals who was invited here tonight couldn't make it at the last minute, and that's State Senator Lindsay Titchener. And she did send a message that said, "I regret that I'm unable to attend the community forum on public safety, and I'm grateful for the community members and Judge Vogel for the effort to make this a successful event. As a member of this community and representative for our Oldham County, it's vital for me to hear from constituents regarding their concerns on various matters. In November, I will be hosting a community town hall. I would encourage members of the community to join with me, and we can continue this discussion. And the details will be announced on her Facebook page." So I know she won't be here tonight, but she had illness strike in her family, and it's just impossible. So we are thinking about her family and wish her the best in that regard. I'd like to introduce everybody who's here now tonight, if I can get all the way through this. I'm 75, so I'm prone to have a name go off the top of my head. So if I do, I apologize in advance, but it does happen every now and then. We have our county attorney, Barry Baxter, and District Judge, Daniel Finley. All right, we have our Commonwealth attorney, Courtney Baxter. Our Circuit Court Judge, Jerry Crosby. Over here we have our Sheriff, Tim Wakefield. LaGrange Chief of Police, Greg Collette. Oldham County Chief of Police, Greg Smith. Now I'm going to be stuck right here.
Colleen Pittman.
From the board, from 7 counties. Thank you, Colleen. And then Eric Davis from the Board of Education. So all of them are here to answer your questions tonight. I'm going to just start the ball rolling, if I can, with a question that was submitted here to us, and we may or may not have what you might consider to be good answers for some questions. We have state statutes, we have ordinances. You can't get put in jail for violating a local ordinance here. You can for a state statute. And as I'm looking over here now, I want to recognize also LaGrange Mayor John Black, who's here, and our magistrate, Mike Logston. Were there any other magistrates who are here tonight? Okay. Magistrate Kevin Jeffries are there. So thank you. So I guess we'll just start the ball rolling here with a question for the sheriff. With the Second Amendment constantly under attack, how does the Sheriff's Office plan to secure the Second Amendment rights of the citizens of our community? This could include tactics for federal law enforcement agencies, including unreasonable home search warrants and knocking on doors to ask about guns in the home. This has happened in other states and communities throughout the country. I don't believe anything like this has happened in Oldham County.
Sure. I'm not aware of any communities or states that have had this going on already, at least not to my attention. House Bill 153 just passed to protect the Second Amendment in the state of Kentucky. The only thing I'm aware of in the state of Kentucky is under a protective order, a judge can order someone to surrender their weapons while that protective order is in place, and as long as she places restrictions on that individual. As far as the federal government coming into Kentucky and starting to confiscate our weapons, I don't believe that to be constitutional, and I will not enforce any federal mandate that I feel is not constitutional.
Okay. I'll go on with another question here. When you'd like to get up and ask a question, I'm going to ask you to come to this microphone over here. The reason is that we're recording this on video here, and when you speak from your seat, very often the microphone can't pick up what your question is. It's lost. So if you'll come over to the microphone and speak, then we'll make sure that we have you there. Okay, here's a question. We knew this would come up, and part of Larry Kaiser's request to have this type of meeting was in response to the shooting in Uvalde, Texas. There was a school shooting there. You know, it's been 4 or 5 months ago now. Right. All right. But that raised all of our concerns about what could happen in any community. So the question here is that about school safety and adequate training for resource officers and implementing school safety protocol. So maybe we could start off with Eric Davis on that.
So I thought if it's okay, take the time to go through everything, really just to let you know a little bit about what we have done, especially in the past really 5 to 7 years, because unfortunately Uvalde was certainly not the first. So as many of you know, back in 2019, Senate Bill 1 was passed in Kentucky, which was basically written after what happened in Marshall County in January of 18. So that has gone through some changes and amendments through Senate Bill 8 in 2020 and then House Bill 63 in 2022. But I think it's important just to kind of go through everything that we have done both prior to, now, and moving forward. But really before I do that, I'm a parent in this district. I have 3 kids that go to Oldham County schools. So this is a personal thing to me and to many of the people that put forth effort into school safety, which to start off is everyone's responsibility. Whether you're a parent, an employee, community member, or school safety is the responsibility of everybody. And so I hope that we all take that to heart and be a part of the solution. So just prior to 2019, one of the big things we did was harden schools. So multi-million-dollar project done, started back probably in 17 or 18. You saw a lot of construction. The majority of that was done to harden the exterior of the buildings and to create vestibules in all of the buildings so that when people are buzzed in, they do not have immediate access to a school, so they have to go through multiple checkpoints. But some of this was also written into SB 1 after we did it, but controlling outside access to exterior doors, ensuring interior doors remain closed and locked during instructional time. I don't know when you all went to school, but when I went to school out here back in the 90s, it was great to have your door open. You know, you got to hear teachers and things like that. But if you walk through a school now, you'll notice that instructional doors have to stay closed and locked at all times, and they are locked from the inside and can't be unlocked from the outside unless there is a key. Controlling the main entrance, so you'll notice all of the main entrance doors are locked, have cameras, intercom systems. We limit outside visitors, which has been a hot topic for lunches and things of that nature. But something I think people often do forget is that my office goes through hundreds of DVOs, EPOs, families fighting against one another, things of that nature that often aren't remembered. But want to provide access to your child for your parent, but do not want to provide access to other people's children unless you are a school employee. So that has been a difficult change over the last couple of years, but one that we think is important. All external windows in Oldham County schools have been treated with bullet-resistant treatments and films that was done. So if you see an exterior building window, that has been treated. There are some security measures that I'm not going to go through tonight, and the purpose of that is to keep the confidentiality of those between often many of the law enforcement that are up here with me and others that are out and about know about them. Some of our school staff, administrators, those who work in the front office know about those, but there are a number of security measures that are not known to the public. But I do want to ensure that everyone knows that there are other things that are done. Just to go through some more things, Judge, if you're okay with it, each school develops an emergency management plan every year that is reviewed by our law enforcement, nurses, mental health practitioners. Each staff member in Oldham County has to be trained on what their school's EMP or emergency management plan is, which includes active shooter training and things of that nature. In collaboration with Oldham County Police, the Grange Police, we do have 10 SROs that serve our 20 school buildings. So we have 17 schools, but 20 buildings if you count Buckner Alternative, the Arvin Center, and the Oldham County Arts Center. Just to let you know, House Bill 63 amended Senate Bill 1 to require an SRO on every campus. So when you think about a campus like Oldham County High School that has the middle school, Buckner Elementary, Oldham County Preschool, Buckner Alternative, and Arvin, sometimes we do have 2 SROs serving that campus because of the size and number of students. SROs are incredibly important. I meet with those guys often. See a former one sitting in the back today, and those guys are putting their life on line for not only my children. I see another one sitting in the back now who's a current board member. So I try to thank those guys every chance that I get because they are the first line of defense for our students, my children included. The other thing I wanted to bring up, obviously a number of more concerning things that have gone on recently is the increase in mental health concern. We have seen that as a school system. We are certainly not immune to that. So back in the last 5 years or so, we have increased to 6 licensed mental health practitioners, 14 school psychologists, and 39 school counselors. If you read SB 1, the recommendation, although there are basically no school districts in Kentucky that can afford to do it, is a ratio of 250 students to 1. 250 students to 1 mental health counselor or school counselor. So we have reduced that ratio to a little over 300 to 1. So we are had a huge increase in the last 6 years on doing that, but also partnering with as many community-based services as possible. So I personally communicate often with Peace Hospital, the Brook, Sun Behavioral Health. We have someone from 7 counties. That is a huge benefit to us. But that is a huge emphasis for our district because we have seen students significantly struggle with mental health. Moving forward on that, we have implemented the Homeland Security Threat Assessment Model. So every school has a team trained in that model where we meet as a team that's led by the mental health consultant for that school to discuss threats when they come about and make recommendations to families. Also have great partnerships with the judges and County Attorney Baxter on making recommendations in juvenile court. I'm there every Friday, or every Friday that it's in session. And we've always had wonderful relationships and feel great support for our judges. So thank you all for that as well. We have recently implemented an online monitoring tool. Just to let you know, if you have kids in the district and they are on a school-issued Chromebook or logged into their Google account, we use artificial intelligence to alert myself and about 10 other people in the district when there have been any threats typed into a computer. So that is 24/7. I make a lot of phone calls at night to families when things have been typed into computers that are of concern. But the biggest thing I can tell you moving forward is continue training for our staff, which we do. And if you see something, to say something. I'm sure you've seen all the ways that you can make anonymous reports that go to a number of us in the school district that we communicate with chiefs and police officers and SROs. It is a 24/7 job, but it's one that I'm privileged to do. And not just for my kids' safety, but for the 12,157 kids as of today in our district. So I appreciate the opportunity, and Judge, if there's anything I missed, I'd be happy to.
Anybody have a question here for Eric about anything he said they'd like explanation about? Or if so, please step up to the mic.
I had a question. I had two. On the Chromebooks, do you all monitor the home purchase ones too?
So we don't have the ability or the lawful ability to monitor. And well, I will say, if a student is logged into their Google account on the home one, then yes.
Okay.
So if they're logged into their Google account through the school system and they search something, or a lot of times in threads back and forth between students, threats made, comments made like that, yes.
Okay. And do you all have any plans in place to maybe find a like a float SRO to fill in instead of having like a patrol car nearby for when the SROs leave campus to go to court, part-time to go to the doctor, something like that? Sure.
So if an SRO is gone off of an individual campus, so let's use Centerfield as an example.
Okay.
Okay. I often work with Chief Smith, because Centerfield is done by OCPD. We try, yes, really hard to get a float SRO or a street officer that is there. We try to bring them in, or we bring the guy from Locust Grove and Centerfield, try to bring him over at times too, which obviously leaves, Locust Grove and East. That leaves Locust Grove and East without one at the time. But yes, that is something we always try to do, and Chief Smith can chime in as well. Sometimes personnel does not allow that, but it is always the goal to have, if it's a full day thing, we will have a sub SRO assigned to that school for the full day. If it's only an hour and a half, which doesn't happen often, but we do attempt to get a street officer at the school to fill in for that particular person. It doesn't always happen. I will tell you that. I think you and I have discussed that before.
Yeah, that's what brought the. Is there plans to hire for a float SRO so there's not pulling off the patrol off the street?
No, not that I'm aware of.
I'd have to agree with that. There's no plans to hire any additional SROs right now. But Mr. Davis is correct. Whenever there is a vacancy at a school, we try our best to make sure someone covers that school. It may be spot checks all day long, or maybe someone assigned to the campus all day long, or school all day long. But we would never let the school go vacant all day long if we can't help it.
Right, I understand. I just know that there was times like they leave and then have to come back or go to court or the CDW's office, or they have their own personal needs they have to attend to too, right? Because police officers are humans. So I just didn't know if there was any plans to fill in for like a float SRO for the times that they do step away to take the pressure off of the street patrols. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. And I understand what you're saying. I certainly appreciate your concern, but at this point, we really don't have the personnel to take someone out patrol to assign them straight into the school. But we will check that school routinely during the day. And we're not the only one. The sheriff's will as well. I mean, if there's a vacancy, we know we'll drive by. We work together as a team. So it's not really, I can't say someone's there all day long, but I will say it is checked on daily.
Okay, so I didn't know the sheriff's department would do that either. I wasn't aware that the sheriff's department did any fill-in services for the schools.
We'd be glad.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it has been, we have a new sheriff, and so Sheriff Wakefield and I have talked about that, and we, in our collective meeting 2 weeks ago, Sheriff also offered that opportunity, which is a new opportunity for us. So that is a good thing as well.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Yes, ma'am.
First of all, I'd like to say thank you to Oldham County Schools and Oldham County Police, LaGrange Police, and the Sheriff's Department for the SRO program here. I don't know if everybody here knows that Oldham County is one of 5 counties as of last school year that have a full SRO program. The reason I do know this is my husband is also an SRO in a different district. But my comment tonight is about the fact that I send my husband to a different county to watch other people's children and send my kids to schools here in Oldham County. I have a child at East and I have a child at OC. The East Campus has been amazing with the SRO program up until this past year. This last year, however, has been an experience as an SRO wife that I don't want other families to have. We have an SRO who sits in his car and an SRO who leaves before the end of the school day. And I'm not sure, and I brought that up to the principal and was told it was basically none of my business and that everything is confidential. And I understand that. I'm in a unique position where I have some of the knowledge that people don't. And I'm also in the unique position of being a police officer's wife who is a little bit more observant and noticed this. But I want to see, and I'm sure it has something to do with the expanded school day. But are the SROs calling in from their driveway like a normal police officer? Or are they calling in on duty once they get to school? And how is that gap going to continue? Because I don't want to see my child going to school and not being protected while I'm sending my husband to another school and protecting other kids.
The SROs report to duty when they are on the school property.
Okay.
When they get there, that's when they start their duty. There will be a new SRO at East and Locust Grove this year. And I think you'll find that he'll be very interactive and very positive. Sorry he had problems in the past, but when these problems happen, I would tell everybody in this room, when these problems happen, you need to call us and tell us. And we will do something about it. Because we want this program to be successful. It has been successful. It's actually kind of been a model for other school districts throughout the state, because they call and ask us, how have we worked this out? And quite frankly, the cooperation between the Board of Education and ourselves and all law enforcement in the county has made this thing so successful. We don't want it to fail. So if there is a problem with anybody anywhere, you need to let us know. But there will be a new SRO assigned to East and Locust Grove, and I think it'll be an improvement.
Hello. I don't have a question. I just wanted to say that me personally and my family have had great experiences with the SROs. Mr. Dawson at LaGrange, when my children had to move there mid-year, he welcomed them. They knew his wife, so it made the transition a lot easier. Our family had a teenager that was going like 70 miles an hour down 4th Street. And I talked to Chief Collette, who is helping handle it, but also the SRO at that campus got involved and talked to him. So I felt like they're always going above and beyond. A lot of them have really good relationships with their students. And I just want to say good job.
Appreciate that. Yeah, one of the things I think SRO, if you read the purpose initially, SRO is, while campus security is obviously a huge thing, it is to build relationships with kids. And so I can tell you as a dad, too, I hear about Officer Bo a lot. And so I'm appreciative of that as well, to hear that it's not just my kids.
All right, thank you. A lot of topics here. One thing you may have heard recently that the fiscal court bought 4 specialty cameras to put at key locations in the county. And I believe LaGrange is on the verge of buying 4 cameras, similar cameras called flock cameras. There are subdivisions in the county that have them. And what we're trying to do is get out in front of people who come from basically outside Oldham County. And while you're sleeping, they're checking the door handles on your car to see what they can, if they can get a car door open and take whatever in there. A surprising number of people will leave a purse or a gun or presents. Or, don't lock the car. We emphasize over and over again, please lock your car. But for some reason, people don't get the message until they get burned. I'd like to ask our law enforcement table here if there's anything that we can do when we apprehend these juveniles. Do we have any flexibility on trying to get control of these kids, or do we just have to let them go? It seems like the kids have learned that you can't touch me. But I don't know if that's the case or not.
So typically what happens in cases like this, first of all, if your car gets broken into, it is probably a juvenile that has done it, and there's a good chance it's a juvenile from another county, most likely Jefferson County. So there's not a whole lot that we can necessarily do in Jefferson County to curb that kind of crime when they come out here. The next thing to keep in mind is that these are organized gangs, but when the kids get caught, which I'll let the police talk about how often that happens, and you know the flock cameras are designed to hopefully assist us with that, but very often they're in stolen cars. So even if we get a license plate off of a car, the car goes back to Jefferson County, it gets abandoned somewhere, or if they find the car, it turns out that it's somebody else's car, and they don't know anything that their car was even taken because, I don't know, they left the keys in their car in Jefferson County, and some juveniles took the car and drove out to Oldham County and started going through vehicles. So if we're fortunate enough to apprehend the individuals, and if they're minors, you got several problems, not the least of which is that they have a whole lot of different rights than people do in adult court. And most of the time the people breaking into cars are going to be minors because that's how they know that the penalties are less, and they get organized this way to come out here and do this. So if they get caught, the matter may eventually come to the attention of my office, but initially they're taken to the court-designated worker. And they have to be interviewed by the court-designated worker, and there has to be a determination made as to whether or not they're going to be detained. The likelihood that a juvenile is going to be detained for taking stuff out of your car is almost none, zero. They're going to get released to a parent or guardian within a matter of a few hours, and they're going to get processed by the court-designated worker. So the next question comes, when it comes to us, is whether or not we're going to try to send them to juvenile court. And if they go to juvenile court, they're going to see Judge Finley here or Judge McKenna if that happens. But again, they're going to have a criminal record that is run. We can make a recommendation that they go to court. We try to recommend almost all of these cases go to court. But by statute, unless that they've had a number of these offenses that they've been caught with, the likelihood is they're going to have to deal with the CDW, and that's the court-designated worker. Court-designated worker, they're limited in what they can do. So they give them some community service, they give them some homework that they need to do, they tell them to write, "I will not steal" from cars in Oldham County 1,000 times, something silly like that. And essentially they are let go with a slap on the wrist, okay? Now, that's based upon the current law, okay? So I don't have any control over the law. I can only apply the law that we have in place to deal with these situations, all right? So if you want something to be changed, and I'm sorry that Senator Tishner has an illness in her family, but those are the people you need to contact. You need to contact your legislators and ask them what can be done, how can the law be changed in order to give there to be some teeth in the law that would put us in a position that we might be able to do something a little more strong, okay? The other thing to keep in mind is there are thresholds about how severe a crime is, regardless of whether or not you're talking about juveniles or you're talking about adults. So if they break into your car and they steal change out of your car, that's probably a Class B misdemeanor, which is punishable for an adult by 90 days in jail. If they steal between $500 and $1,000, then it's a Class A misdemeanor, and that's punishable by up to 12 months in jail. They have to steal over $1,000 out of your car, or they have to steal a firearm for it to be a felony offense. Now, if they steal a firearm and they're juveniles, you know, that's a mandatory waiver to depending on their age, that's likely a mandatory waiver to circuit court. But the law is designed to protect the confidentiality, and it's designed to protect the juvenile more than it is, quite frankly, to protect what's in your car. So it's a difficult problem, but until the law is changed, that's what we have to deal with. And there's not a whole lot, our hands are kind of tied, We do the best we can within the confines of the system, but I guess the other thing I would tell you is that there's not a whole lot of juvenile detention facilities in the state of Kentucky. So if the question is detain or not detain, if they're going to figure out a way not to detain somebody because there's just no place to send them. So that's kind of the bad answer, but that's the answer, Your Honor.
Anybody who would like to ask a question, please feel free to get up. I'll keep asking questions if nobody does, but I'd like to help. I do want to ask the other people at this table to each one briefly explain what their function is: district judge, Commonwealth attorney, circuit court judge.
My name is Jerry Crosby. Once again, I serve as the circuit court judge here in Oldham, Henry, and Trimble County. So we have a 3-county circuit. The circuit court judge handles basically, circuit court judge is a judge of what's called general jurisdiction. And general jurisdiction means that I handle all the felony offenses once they reach the circuit court after a person's been indicted by a grand jury or they come to the circuit court by way of information. I also handle any lawsuits that are above $5,000. And just about anything else that you could possibly think of, we handle in circuit court, with the exception of all of those things that are specifically assigned to the district court. And of the things that people would end up coming to court for, somewhere about 94 to 95% of those things are handled in district court. It's usually the big things that come to the circuit court judge.
I'm Courtney Baxter, and I am the Commonwealth's attorney for Henry, Oldham, and Trimble counties. So my cases are in front of Judge Crosby, and they are felony cases, which is anything that's more than a year and up to including life and the death penalty types of cases. So it runs the gamut. If it's a misdemeanor, we don't deal with those cases. I have 3 assistants that work in my office, and they work in the various court systems in this jurisdiction, and it's the 12th Judicial Circuit. The only time we deal with juvenile matters is if the case has been transferred from the district court judge, and there's a process that happens, and those are the cases that involve more serious crimes committed by juveniles.
My name is Daniel Finley. I serve as one of the district court judges in the 12th Circuit, and that's we have 2 district court judges. Judge Brittany McKenna is in Division 2, I'm in Division 1. And what we do what Judge Crosby did for how many years were you a district court judge?
20.
For 20 years. And as it pertains to this meeting, the district court handles the traffic docket and also handles the misdemeanors and felonies at the preliminary level. So if someone is arrested by a police officer at night, then the district court judge will be, who's on call, will be setting a bond in the morning on that case. And then those cases will proceed into district court on arraignment, and then if it's a misdemeanor, it can be resolved in district court, or will be resolved in district court. If it's a felony, then some of those will be resolved in district court, but those will proceed to circuit court. And then the district court also handles other matters of a civil variety as well. I would say, Oldham County has knocking on the door of maybe 70,000 people. It's continuing to grow. When I was a kid here, there was like 1 or 2 stoplights in the whole county, maybe 30,000 people, if that. But the dockets in Oldham County, they're not any bigger than they were 20 years ago. And in fact, and Judge Crosby could probably speak to this more than me, they're smaller. At least in district court. In district court, they're smaller. Not so much for circuit court, but the district court dockets are smaller. And knock on wood that remains. The Henry County cases in district court, the county has a population that's 4 times less than Oldham, but the docket is not 4 times smaller. In fact, in many days, when I go to Henry County for district court, I have more cases on the docket there than I do in Oldham. And I don't know whether the size of the dockets is the cause for that is less crime, whether it's lack of manpower. I don't know. I mean, there might be a lot of different factors at play, but Oldham County is a safe community. It always has been, but there's challenges, of course, when you have a community that's continuing to grow. I mean, raise your hand if you've ever been a victim of a property crime. Has anybody in here ever been a victim of a property crime? And raise your hand, anybody? I mean, see, you got 3 people up here at this table. Joe Crosby, you're the lucky one here. No, when Judge Vogel was saying, you know, lock your door, I mean, common sense stuff. I mean, this is, you know, I had guns stolen out of my Jeep, and I thought I locked it, but you know, and it wasn't, and that's all they took. They rifled through the whole Jeep, and there was other things in there, but they went straight for the firearm that I had, and so common sense things. I click the button 3 or 4 times now whenever I, you know, leave my car to make sure that it's locked, because you just don't know. I mean, we're not manually locking anymore. We're using the buttons. And locking your house at night, making sure you have a camera, you know. A lot of ring cameras in Oldham County, and you know, everybody should have a camera system, because that helps law enforcement to track down individuals who are committing crimes. But district court's an important job because, again, the bonds are being set in court, and those cases do proceed into district court at the very outset. And so it's a good job.
First, I'd like, excuse me. First, I'd like to say thank you for everyone coming. Appreciate Judge Vogel putting this on. I give him a hard time in fiscal court meetings, so I appreciate that he was open and receptive to this. I just got a few ideas and questions. The first one, to what you were just talking about the difficulties of the state law and how that plays a role here, and we need legislators. I see that, I acknowledge that. In your profession and in your role as a county attorney, can you help draft some sort of letter that would propose changes that then we could discuss or look at, or maybe get the fiscal court to sign off on, and help push our legislators to make some of those changes and take your advice into consideration?
Well, so a couple things. I mean, I'm not sure that the fiscal court, and it's very confusing in Kentucky, isn't it? Right. We have a fiscal court, and you have a judge, but he's the county judge, and he's the chief administrative officer for this county. Right. And then you have a circuit judge and a district judge, and they work in not only in this county but in 2 other counties. The system is really messed up. I mean, trying to explain to people that I'm the county attorney and I prosecute misdemeanor crime. Courtney often tells people she's the DA because people understand the DA because you watched it on TV. We have associations both for the Commonwealth's attorneys and for the county attorneys that are legislative liaisons to the folks in both the House and the Senate. So yes, I would be more than happy to communicate, probably more likely through my association, because they have, for example, lobbyists that are able to talk directly with those folks and have their ears. You know, for the most part, the folks that represent us here, Jason Nemus, for example, I've got his cell phone number. And if I have a problem, I call Jason, and he's more than happy to take my call. And if he doesn't, he calls me back very quickly. Speaker Osborne will do the same. So, you know, I don't think that that's going to be a problem. I will tell you that I think the pushback is going to be about, number one, getting more detention, because that costs money, and because the state doesn't necessarily want to pay for that or fund that. That's a problem. And number two is, obviously, I have my position, which is I think that the penalties need to be harsher. And while I have that position, there are plenty of people who are advocates in the state for weakening the criminal laws. Not just this, but you know, the drug possession laws. There's a whole litany of things. I could talk to you for an hour about the drug laws, but
right. And to that, let me interject here. That's a topic I'd like to bring up: cannabis, legalizing cannabis. Not only by keeping it illegal are we giving money to cartels and gangs. We're funding that. We're also losing out on revenue to help pay for detention, to pay for the extra SRO. Other states are doing that, and we're missing out on that. So that's something else. You know, I've pushed Judge Vogel in the fiscal court to write a resolution the same way that they protected like firearms a few years ago to declare their support for different topics. But I think maybe we'll disagree on that point. Some of your harder drugs, I'm not going to argue anything for, but for cannabis, I think we're missing out on an opportunity to raise funds for a number of things. And another question I had, or this is really a comment, like Officer Wilt, he's got to rely on crowdfunding campaigns to help with medical bills and stuff. I feel if we're going to ask SROs and police, firefighters, every other like first responder to put their lives at risk, we have a responsibility to take care of them and not have our first responders rely on crowdfunding campaigns to cover healthcare costs. So maybe we could talk about that later. Couple of the other comments, and then I'll move on to not hold up everyone's time. Can we discuss a local ordinance to hold gun owners responsible if their firearms are used in a crime? For example, if someone breaks into a car and steals it, or a kid gets into their dad's safe or whatever, hold the gun owner responsible. That way there's more focus and responsibility on the person who owns the gun to lock it up and all of that, because they might be held liable. Also understand that there's not a waiting period. Some of these violent outbursts are emotional. You know, someone get mad and going in, and waiting periods could help that. And so to some of the response, you know, impeding on rights and all that, like, I'm not asking to take away anyone's weapons. I'm not asking to take away anyone's guns. If you look at weapons on a spectrum, you know, on one side you have, say, a pocket knife. On the other side, I don't know, an atomic bomb. And somewhere on there, like, you wouldn't want someone to have a certain type of weapon. You know, like, where do you draw the line? It's all different for us. But I'm not advocating to take away any weapons, but what I will say, like the fiscal court in 2018 and, you know, 20 years ago as well, they enacted and then reenacted a smoking ban, where you can't smoke cigarettes indoors, you can't vape indoors. There were some businesses, even like a cigar store, that wanted a permit to you know, let their customers test their products. And we decided collectively that even though, like, everyone has a right to do what they want with their own bodies, smoking is legal, you can do it, we decided that putting the safety of the workers and the other public at large is more important than someone's right to smoke. So I just don't want to hear that as a counter. But that's all I had. If you guys want to talk about some of those, I would appreciate it.
I may stand corrected on this, but I believe the suggestions that you're making are beyond the ability of the county government to implement. Those have to be state statutes that we can enforce, but we deal with ordinances. Right. You actually can't go to jail for violating an ordinance.
Right.
You get fined.
But an ordinance, a fine, I don't want to pay a fine either. Like, I'm a gun owner. I keep my firearms secure, and I would do so because I don't want to pay a fine. The same way I don't want to pay a speeding ticket so I don't get caught or I don't speed. But, you know, I'm more responsible with that risk there. So I get that you can't change the state law, and I'm not asking to, but I think those are ordinances we could do locally to help. And maybe that's not an issue here, but it could be.
You mentioned, I'll bring up a little story here. You mentioned that in the 2007, I came on the fiscal court, and the first major vote that I was involved in had to do with prohibiting smoking in public places. We had a big turnout at fiscal court. You know, you and I have talked about meetings and not many people come out at evenings, but that night 250 people came out that night and jammed into the fiscal court chamber, and many of them were very hot. It was a very emotional vote for me that night, because I might get emotional now just thinking about it, because the vote was on March 20th, 2007. And that was exactly 35 years to the day after my father died from lung cancer. And I was thinking about him and that vote. And of course, I voted in favor of prohibiting public smoking. But life is going on. People still smoke. A person really don't understand much about cigarettes or why. I know tobacco is an ingrained culture, but it's a product that harms people and people get trapped up on it and everything else. But I don't know what you can suggest to Barry here what, you might think would be a good ordinance, but I'm not, we can fine people for having guns stolen out of your car. I'm not sure, if we can do that or not. But we do want to stop, dangerous pieces of equipment like that from being in circulation at all. People should have their weapons under control, and many of them don't. I would like to shift just a little bit here and to bring up Colleen Pittman here, and give Colleen a chance. Last year, the fiscal court donated money along with the health department to help support the psychological services and the drug abuse issues in the public schools. We supported the program called Care Solace. The fiscal court just made a commitment to the Baptist Health to help support 11 psychiatric beds they're going to install in the new wing there. Mental health and drug issues are terrible. Again, why this is out there, why people are involved. 75 years old and I don't understand it. Was a lot easier to be a 25 in the 70s than 75 in the 20s. Just time is going on, I don't understand. But will you tell us and give us some perspective on mental health and drug abuse that you deal with at 7 counties?
Thank you all for having me. I do work for 7 counties. Actually, right now what I'm doing is I oversee a grant that was given to 7 counties specifically for Oldham County, because the research has shown that Oldham County needs to raise awareness about mental health. So we have a 4-year grant to do that, which I'm trying to implement. It's interesting you brought up the question about the legalization of marijuana, because I was on a training yesterday for that through 7 counties. And the officer who did the training, he was from out of state, but from his research in Kentucky is saying that this will be our worst year yet for our youth and mental health, which is pretty scary because I feel like it's been drastically declining the past couple of years. So I'm excited when I took this position to know that Oldham County has already developed an Oldham County Mental Health Task Force. And I don't know how many people in the county even know it exists, but it does meet monthly. Anybody in the community is welcome to attend. We have a wide representation of community leaders on that committee, and it is has several different capacities. One is reducing the stigma around mental health. One is early intervention, and the other includes transportation. As we know, that's a problem that oftentimes prohibits people from even getting to mental health services. So I have joined that committee. A lot of people in this room attend those meetings, so I see a lot of friendly faces from there. But one of our goals is to raise mental health awareness through what we're calling mental health first aid. And it is just like medical first aid. You would be a first responder. You would recognize somebody's in duress. You would approach and help them get to the help that they need. That is what mental health first aid does. It teaches you to recognize the signs and symptoms so that you can help people get to the resources in our community to help with whatever challenge it is. So we have several trainings coming up for that. Our goal is to get 100 people trained this year, 150 people trained the next 3 consecutive years. So I would love to invite everybody in this room to do that, because obviously you care about the community or you wouldn't be here tonight. That information is on the table as you walk out. QR code right here. And we have 2 trainings coming up. We have a training that focuses on adult and one that focuses on working with youth. So that's kind of where we are. Questions for me? All right. Thank you for your time.
Well, as we sit here tonight, we have Oldham County Police. We've got 7 units on the street tonight, trying to keep us safe. The Oldham County Sheriff has 2 units out. The Grange Police, I believe you have 2 units, right? We don't know who's going to show up, if anybody, tonight. We hope not, as far as malevolent individuals, but we do have people out. We've gone to 12-hour shifts with our police.
We've upgraded the salaries. We've given a lot of good equipment for police and sheriff. And I don't think Greg Colette's had a chance to speak yet. Greg, would you like to say anything about the activities in LaGrange? And here comes your, I don't want to say your boss, but I guess that's how it boils out. Mayor?
If I could, maybe I'll ask that question, but you know, a lot of these folks that are taking advantage of people's property are getting pretty brazen how they're going about this. At least that's what the chief tells me. They're not fearful about anything, and they'll come right into your garage at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning and just see what's there and jump in the car and take off and go somewhere else. But the question I have, I guess, for the judges, you know, a lot of people are armed in their houses today. They have firearms, and I guess the question I would have, if they're out in your car ransacking it and you open up your garage door and you just go right into the car and you kill them, more or less, and the police probably going to be arresting that person for doing that, you know, even though they're protecting their property. And I guess the question is, how far should a homeowner go if they come up on that at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and do they just say, call the police, say, let them take off and don't worry about it? So, you know, that's my question.
Mayor, I'm going to probably say something that the judges want me to say, which is they're not going to give you a legal opinion about a particular case, okay? Those issues, stand your ground and things like that, there are provisions in the law about how those are addressed. First of all, if you think there's somebody in your garage, I would encourage you first to call 911. Don't go out and confront somebody, because that could end badly for you as well. So that's number one. I think the judges would be a little reluctant to give legal advice on that, because those are the kinds of questions, especially Judge Crosby, I know that those questions come to him oftentimes in circuit court, and he has to judge those based upon the individual set of facts that are presented to him. I don't mean to speak for them, but I just think they're going to be a little reluctant to want to give you that kind of advice. But
Well, it's just not for me, it's for the people.
I understand.
And right, I mean, and it wouldn't be good of us to give advice about that. I mean, those cases, if you give us a fact scenario, like maybe we would get it in a law school exam, we'd have to do an analogy there, but that if a case like that happened and somebody came in and somebody fired, either the person that came in the garage and was taking things fired on the homeowner or vice versa, there would be an investigation by law enforcement. And, you know, through that investigation, we see that all the time, and make a determination about what kind of charges should be filed, if any. And in that case, if there are charges that are filed, would be presented either through the district court process, if there's an arrest made, or brought to my office for evaluation and presentation to the grand jury. If there were any defenses that could be raised by the person in charge, like stand your ground, those things would be addressed at the circuit court level. We do have an immunity statute that can be raised at the early onset of a case that gets indicted. And at that point, Judge Crosby would make an evaluation of the Commonwealth's case and determine whether or not that person was entitled to immunity. But to give advice about what to do, and I don't think we're in a
I will say this, both Barry and Courtney are correct. Judges, as a rule, ethically, we're not allowed to give an opinion about anything. I can't be anybody's lawyer, and also their judge. So I don't offer my opinion about anything like that. But what I will say is this: if you are a gun owner, no people who own firearms in not only this community but around the country are very cognizant of their rights. Also know what the limitations are under the law as well. Be cognizant of that as well. And some of that is what Mayor Black's question addresses, is what are some of those limitations. So educate yourself. Go and read and find out what those limitations are. And that should be part of your concealed carry training regardless, but if that's, if you're a person that does have a concealed carry permit. If it's not, it needs to be.
In regards to the theft out of a car, or theft of articles out of cars and vehicle thefts, it's a sporadic problem. We are not the only area encountering this. E-Town, Shelby County, Henry County, you name it, a geographical area that's comparable to Oldham County, they're getting hit. These are, just as been spoken to before, these are organized efforts. They've developed a strategy. And if you overall think about the layout of Oldham County, what is it? Primarily residential. This becomes a shopping mall for the criminal element, and especially those that are lax in securing your property and your vehicles. In regards to the cars, there's cars with keys in them. These cars are being used in violent crimes in other jurisdictions, and tags are getting switched. The firearms, they're fine. We're being targeted for our firearms in our area. We can provide deterrence, but if we remove those options from there, hopefully we can become a less targeted community. And what we try to do, we're very blessed, the 3 law enforcement leaders here, we've all worked together in some form or fashion, sometimes on the same agency, we get along. I've never seen a level of cooperation between the agencies in this county that we're in the period we're in right now. We've all worked together, we've experienced a lot of bad things, good things, we speak from experience. We know how key it is for all our law enforcement agencies to get along, and I think we're there. There's no turf battles. Everybody gets the mission done regardless of the uniform color of the badge they're wearing. And it's the same approach when we suspect that we're going to have these heightened times of crime, which is difficult to predict, but if we see outlying counties seeing it, we try to bolster our numbers, adjust shifts, bring people in overtime. We alert each other. Those other jurisdictions through intelligence networks make us aware of what's going on. Communication lines are pretty good within the state. And city council and the mayor, very supportive of law enforcement. They take these things into consideration when they realize we're spending money, but we're doing it to provide safety to the community and those that travel through it. These are very dangerous situations. Our law enforcement in the county, we try to network as much as we can and bolster it to where our presence is known, and we try to negate it. But I think you've probably seen through some of the neighborhood videos and neighborhood or videos we release. It's a difficult task sometimes for the numbers that are being sent out here and the organization that they're applying to us. And for to generally speak, just for the department, for our agency, we're 16 officer department, 16 sworn positions. Currently, we're at 15. The way our days rotate off, we vary on our shift numbers. We don't have set numbers per day, per shift. Sometimes it can go up to 4, down to 2. Very limited times, may go down to 1 for a few hours, but we usually try to enhance that with overtime coverage as well. And what we do when we're in these, we were in a very difficult spot about 18, 24 months ago. We had 4 vacancies. You take 4 vacancies on a 16-man department, you have taken a hit. And those times our other agencies helped and supported us. Thank goodness hiring conditions have improved, pay scale has become comparable to neighboring areas and within the county. And we're back to where we need to be, and hopefully we never go through that situation again. But I don't know, Chief Smith wants to add anything to that, what they're seeing on the T-butts, but I believe they're seeing about the same.
We are. We're seeing the exact same thing he is. And, over and over again, we've told people and homeowner associations and fiscal court, the good part about it is living in Oldham County, you feel comfortable. Thank you. You're living in Oldham County, we feel comfortable. Nice, safe area for the most part. But these thieves will prey on us, and they look for opportunities to steal. So we keep trying to tell people, lock your cars, take your computers, your purses, your guns, take them in the house, lock them up, make sure they're secure. Because cheap collectors are correct. When they come out here, it's a smorgasbord. They keep going through neighborhoods, find cars open, steal real quick, and they're gone. So far this year, just in the county alone, this doesn't include LaGrange stats, We've had 42 cars stolen. First year I came out here, we had less than 10. You know, so it's here, it's happening, and we have to learn how to protect ourselves. 23 weapons have been stolen out of those cars. 23. That doesn't seem like a lot, but we'll tell you that in the middle of the night, when our officers, their officers, or the deputies roll up in a car where a gun's being stolen, that is a serious incident waiting to happen. We don't want that to happen. So please tell your neighbors, lock your cars, put your things away, and just think security. Don't leave your keys in the car. Most of the cars that were stolen had the keys in them. Probably all the cars that were stolen had keys in them. So you got to think safety, and that would be my advice.
I want to encourage anybody. We thought we'd get a lot of questions here tonight. I know a lot of people have come with curiosity, but just wondering what would happen. But don't be shy. We're all among friends here, and there isn't a dumb question. We're here to answer them. So we'll have a constable come forward now, and Barry Wilding.
Yes, Barry Wilding, Constable in District 8. So I know a lot of you in the past have been seeing on Nextdoor or other social media platforms about slow coverage or slow response times from the police and inadequate coverage in parts of the county and all. I've seen all that too. But I wanted to give you an improvement report that I experienced firsthand on Saturday. You heard Chief Collette talk about improvements to staffing and funding and so forth. Chief Smith and Sheriff Wakefield all have similar things to report, and the good news is that it's working, and I'll tell you how. My wife and I were walking at Crestwood Station this past Saturday, walking our dogs, and I observed a suspicious vehicle parked behind All About Kids, and the vehicle was occupied. It was heavily tinted windows. But as soon as I cleared around the side of the building, I called dispatch and gave the descriptors to the dispatcher. And I kid you not, within 3 minutes, not one county officer, not 2 county units, but 3 county units were there within 3 minutes and had surrounded that vehicle. So improvements are being made to the system. I want to have kudos to Chief Smith for his team, but that was the fastest response. I was flabbergasted, to tell you the truth. I mean, I almost had a chance to blink and they were all there. Thank you.
Can we ask him to tell us what his role is as a constable? Can you tell us what it is you do?
All right, so there are, it's a constitutional office from the Kentucky Constitution. Constable Saylor here is president of the Kentucky Constable Association, and he'll be glad to tell you about that sometime. I'm sure Judge Vogel doesn't want to go into that. Now, there is a basic philosophical difference between how we think we could help the county and what the county doesn't want us to do. So we were irreverently referred to earlier today, I understood, as mall cops. So I'm sorry that we can't help you as mall cops. Our hands are tied. We don't have access to radios. There are a lot of things that your county won't let us do, but that's a discussion for another time, and I don't want to get that started here. That we can talk about that at fiscal court meeting would be a good place to go.
Okay.
I'll elaborate on that. Just you know, where angels fear to tread, you know, I'll move right in. Constables are an office in the county, in the state of Kentucky government that go way back to the formation of the state. When people rode horseback from one part of the county to another. And the different sections of the county had a constable, and the constable was was the local representative of the sheriff in that part of the county. And the constables would come together and they formed the county fiscal court, okay, and voted on things, did things. Goes way, way back. Time has changed over the years. Things have progressed. The sheriff's department, police department, roads, traffic, and so forth. But the Kentucky Constitution has maintained the office of constable. Now, in some parts of the state, constables are, I think, considered very valuable because some counties are not as well off as Oldham County, and they're not able to afford enough law enforcement officers. So they're supplemented by people who are elected as constable. Constable is an elected position. You can run for office, challenge somebody, or get on the ballot. Maybe there's no one challenging you. And you can be elected as a constable and have the authority to have a badge and a weapon, and can do some of the same things the sheriff can do, theoretically. Okay, but they're not set up as an office. You can't get an official license plate from the state of Kentucky if you're a constable, because they say they're not attached to any office. They're elected officials. We have some people in our county who want to be constables, and I respect their desire to serve the community in that way. But some of them, I think the two we have here tonight, are well-trained individuals. But I could run for constable with no legal training or law enforcement training whatsoever, be elected constable and get a badge, and maybe I'd make a big mistake or do something inappropriate because I don't have the training. So in our particular county, we have, as I say, about, I'd say, roughly speaking, probably 70 law enforcement individuals we could call on immediately, between the police, the sheriff, Pee-wee Valley Police. There are state police that live in our county, Jefferson County Police. If we had a real need to turn out a lot of trained law enforcement people, we could come up with a pretty sizable number quickly. Constables fit into this picture somehow, but I don't want to speak for these sheriff or the chiefs who are here tonight, but most of them, I believe, are of the opinion that most constables do not have the depth of training that other law enforcement, your regular officers and deputies have. Now, they can go to a school in Richmond, Kentucky, that takes 22 weeks, I believe, to go through there, if they can get a seat in the school. Kentucky has a convoluted way of training law enforcement. Most time, if you want to be trained as a lawyer, for example, you go to law school, pass the bar, and go get yourself a job. But in Kentucky, if you want to be a law enforcement officer, you have to get somebody to agree to hire you, and then they send you to this school. Well, this school doesn't have as many seats in it. It's not just not everybody can go anytime they want to. You have to get a position, get a reservation, and go there for an extended period. So it's a difficult passageway to get through sometimes for people who would like to go but can't always make it because they're not supported by a local law enforcement agency. So it's a convoluted sort of answer, but I'm trying to say that these gentlemen here are trying hard to be good community servants. But the position they're in is a little bit antiquated in my mind based on just the length of the Constitution. And even now when we swear people into office, we ask you to swear that you have not fought in a duel. Well, why hasn't the legislature taken that out of the oath of office? It's something that's tradition from a long time ago, just still there and continues on. So, okay, I see another lady, please all come on up, and I see some people holding signs over there. Can't say I really understand exactly what your signs mean, but I'm glad you are reacting in some way. Okay, come on up, please.
Vicki Asher, City of Goshen. And my question and comment is basically law enforcement related. I think everybody's aware that we have a pretty serious human trafficking issue in the country. And the church I attend is pretty involved in this and even has a house for women that have been trafficked in an area not far from here. So my question is, have you considered some self-defense training for teen girls and women? It's something that I think many people, many young women, teenage girls and mothers would love to have in this county. And I was wondering if I've been doing some research. If any of you officers would volunteer to work with me to find a program that's appropriate and effective, your thoughts?
The school gave one.
Are you asking me?
All of you, yeah.
You know, I wish we had the time, the resources where we could put classes on like that.
I don't mean you necessarily personally, I understand.
You would want me
I don't mean you personally. I mean, would you work with me and support and evaluate if I find someone, which I think I may have someone that you know, that would teach, and I can't be the judge of, I need someone to give me input and take, you know what I'm saying, to say, okay, if I bring some programs and say, give me your opinion of this, because one officer said, well, we tell you to, you know, put the key in your hand when you know, avoid certain areas. That's, you know, not going to work. We need physical training. If you're grabbed, if you're attacked, what do you do? And that's not something you're going to learn in one class. So what, you know, I think is important. And has this been an issue in Oldham County? Do you have any reports of anybody being snatched? I know there was one case where a woman from the city of Goshen was in Walmart, and she was followed all around Walmart by 3 men, and she was terrified. And I asked a Walmart manager, he said, we don't think that's true, because this was the Crestwood Walmart, because, you know, she didn't report it to us. Well, she did call Oldham County Police, because I called the police to make sure that she posted it on Facebook, that she was, you know, telling the truth. So, do you all have any information as far as, is this happening as far as you know? I'd be surprised if there isn't some of it happening in Oldham County.
I can't really think offhand of a time where we've had a female that was accosted like that.
Okay. Well, that's
I can't think all the time that we have. You know, I certainly understand a person's fear, though, especially in this day and age.
Sure.
That maybe someone might be following you or watching you, and you should be alert of that.
Well, I think we all need to be prepared to take care of ourselves and our kids without having to shoot somebody. That's the last resort. So I think we really need training, and there's a lot of people that should not even have a gun.
When I was in law school, this is a long time ago, but when I was in law school, I had a female professor. I was taking a class in gender discrimination, and class was taught by Professor Brock, female professor, and she went around the room and she asked everybody in the room, what do you do to protect yourself when you're walking alone in public? There's only like 4 guys in the whole class, because it's a gender discrimination class. This is the early 90s. No other guys want to take the class. I guess I was the only one who was brave enough to do it, secure enough in my manhood, at least at the time. And so it gets to me, everybody's talking about, well, I carry mace, I walk with my keys out, and, you know, I have a key up like this, so if anybody attacks me, poke their eyes. I take, you know, other individuals said that they had taken self-defense classes, and then it gets to me. And I'm like, I don't do anything, because of the size that I am. But I have a 17-year-old daughter who's going to UK in the fall. Well, she leaves in just about 4 weeks, and she'll be a student on campus. And the first thing I was thinking, you know, it's funny you raised that, I was thinking the other day, I need to have my daughter do a self-protection class before she goes to school.
I have a class for her.
And so what I will encourage you to do, and anybody else in this room, is you don't need permission from the police chiefs or any of these people over here that work over on the justice side of things, or even from fiscal court.
Oh, sure.
Just go and do and get the word out and let people know what you're doing, whether it's at the YMCA, the LaGrange Community Center, over in Goshen at your church. I live over in Goshen, so if you do set it up, it's easy for me to get to and get my daughter to. Just get it done. Just go do it. And you will find that people will come and participate.
Yeah, it's just, I'm trying to find somebody who will do it and is qualified to do it, wants to do it, and then everybody has to, of course, sign a release form, and you would have to sign a release for your dog. Okay, all right. Okay.
Good evening. Got a couple of construction-related questions. The new signal down here at 393 by the expressway, I think Kevin Woosley said it's going to be operational tomorrow. Is that correct? Okay. Could you tell me why the standard recommendations of the MUTCD wasn't followed? Usually when a new light comes into play, the flashers are set on for a whole week before that light actually is initiated. Any reason why those flashers weren't on?
The Kentucky Transportation Cabinet operates in its own sphere. Doesn't ask us any permission to do anything on their roads. All these main arteries or KYTC roads, we ask the same questions, and we asked repeatedly why that light was going to be turned on June 13th instead of today. So, wish I could answer it, but you have to call District 5 and ask to talk to their public affairs person there, and maybe they can give you a half answer. I really don't know.
And what about the Railroad underpass? I've heard so many rumors. I heard it's 10 years out now. Any updates on that?
We're right now, we've waited a long time for Louisville Gas and Electric, AT&T, KYTC, and CSX to all agree on the same plan as to where the temporary track is going to be built, how it's going to be built, and what the movement date of the utilities will be. I'm under the impression that you see pipelines out there now, so we're getting some, we expect that to actually happen about the next year and a half, so that there'll be something done. But the problem is that utilities don't have, plenty of crews, so they schedule their work out in advance, and if all the clearances aren't there, they keep scheduling their work out, so that by the time all the clearances are ready, that everybody's agreed on what's going to happen. Well, then they're ready to go 3 years from now. So we have the same problem over on Highway 42. I think in 2010 they told us it was going to be widened from the county line to Richmond, where I went to a meeting there. We've had about 2 or 3 lawsuits, people fighting on against the property being taken to stand, to be doing that or something else. So it's extremely slow, and we're as frustrated by it as anybody, but we just, it's like pushing a boxcar. I mean, you can't hardly get it to move, but it will move in time.
What about the burn ban? Is that contractor given an exception on 71 with burning, the ordinance of burning?
I believe they have been.
They are.
I mean, that's a major project, and it's got to keep moving forward.
Okay. Erica Davis, I do have a question for you. You said all the windows are bullet resistant proof. Is that included in your
Yes. Sorry, I thought you said proof.
Yeah, bullet resistance coating. Does that include Oldham County High School and Buckner Alternative?
Yes.
Does it? Okay. All right. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for asking.
Hello, my name is Autumn Bentley. I live off of Dawkins. I have worked specifically with women and children in human trafficking internationally and nationally. So to put fears at rest, which I'm sure there are a few people behind me that are going to mention trafficking again, you are more likely to be assaulted or harmed from someone in your family, someone you know personally at church. That's typically how those things go as far as child sexual assault and stuff like that. Not necessarily trafficked. So I'm just going to put, some things at ease. And also we have I-65, I-71 There are a lot of things, unfortunately, coming through our state that we do not know of. I'm sure law enforcement is more aware of, but that's nothing to fearmonger or make anyone remotely afraid of. Number two is to second the gentleman in the green collared shirt. If, like his thing about ordinances and stuff, I know that we can't really do that, but maybe we can write something up. Because, like, I don't know, if a thief could get in your car and possibly steal a firearm, couldn't your child do it? Or someone in your family who's upset know that you are someone who owns one? Maybe we should make it more, I guess, billboard situation that we are very much a county for safety, and those who own firearms should have them put away safely. And if you're going to pay for them, or be trained on them and have concealed and carries, maybe make concealed and carries something that needs to be legal in the county. I don't know how this works. I'm just saying, like, let's put fear at ease for human trafficking, and also let's make this place really safe for kids, because I also have children. And Mr. Eric, the windows being resistant is Oldham County Preschool as well, correct? Yes. Awesome, because that is nothing but a face of windows, so keep those babies safe.
Yeah, I will tell you, just to make sure everybody understands, like, an AR-15 round, things like that, there's only so much a window. That's why I say resistant, not proof.
Exactly. And that is, not to get emotional, my 7-year-old or 8-year-old's fear for his 3-year-old brother who's nonverbal. So I don't know, maybe let's not care more about guns, and let's care more about babies that need to learn to speak, children that need to learn that they're safe, period.
Right. Thank you. It was mentioned a minute ago to the ladies in here, a lot of the men aren't as security conscious as ladies, just because they haven't been trained that way. The other day, my daughter said to me at Kroger, she said, if I see a car parked too close to my driver's door, she said, I'll wait till that person comes out and leave, because I feel if I go to my car, they could get me trapped between those two doors. And that was a thought that never crossed my mind. I said, well, I didn't realize you were, thinking about something like that. But I guess you have to be, on the alert all the time, unfortunately. Next speaker, please.
I don't think we can deny that there is a human trafficking problem in our country. This is something that is common knowledge. We do live in a very safe area, and that is one of the reasons why we love it so much. That's one of the reasons why there are so many people here right now, because Oldham Countyans are involved. But we do have the potential here. Almost weekly, I read something on, someone mentioned Nextdoor. There are forums where people speak about this all the time. There are women in this community who have been followed out to their parking lots. I read about it all the time. I know 2 of them who have had to go to a representative of a store, a manager, an employee, a clerk, and say, hey, I don't feel comfortable. This guy's following me. Last week, someone had to yell at a man who was following her, who took off like a bolt in one of the stores. She said she called the police. And I just want to say, I know it happens, because it happened to me. At Planet Fitness, in the locker room, just going about my business, I come out and there is a gentleman, fully naked, exposed himself to me and started speaking to me, had my headphones on, couldn't hear what he was saying. But the training I received when I was doing medical training kicked in. Don't let anybody get in between you and the door. And I didn't. And I got out of there, reported him to the employees and then the police. A 15-year-old girl's not going to think like that, or 16. I'm not sure how old they have to be in Planet Fitness by themselves. But we have this problem here, and denying it's not going to help anybody. We have to be acutely aware of any dangers that affect our community, and this is one of them. And I'll tell you, if you did offer some sort of class, self-defense, I think I can speak for my group that there would be a large number of women who would like to participate in that, not just for our own protection, but for protection of each other.
All right, thank you. Next speaker.
Hello, thank you. My name is Rosa Johnson Oaks. I am a parent of a 4th grade student here at Goshen Elementary School. And recently we had a special meeting about policy at our school, at our big board meeting. And I presented my concerns as a parent about my child's safety at school, especially in relating to House Bill 63 and the fact that we were not complying with the August 1st, 2022 requirement that we had an SRO at every campus location. My son's school was an isolated campus, and I was not aware that our school shared an SRO until I started volunteering at my child's school. And I want to make this clear, my husband is in law enforcement. I have absolute respect for what you do, and I want to see a law enforcement officer at every school possible. And in the response from the district, they said that they were exceeding the minimum standards. And you know, I don't think that's really what parents want to hear. Parents want to hear that we are doing more, that we are doing the utmost that we can do for security. And I want to speak on behalf of many parents who have raised concerns for our district, and maybe Mr. Davis can answer this, but the reasoning for that was not that we couldn't recruit enough, it was the funding from our superintendent. And my question is, if we have money for new administrators and extra administrative raises, etc., why are we not putting this money into safety officers? And also, there are a couple of locations where they have added extra officers, but that is not equal among the schools. So, you know, some schools have a dedicated officer and some don't. And so my question is, why are some children receiving one level of security and some aren't? And as far as my son's situation, I was told that Goshen will have a primary officer now, which I really appreciate. I'm very thankful for. But I have concerns about the children at Harmony now who have one officer for 2 schools. And I wonder why our district is not funding another officer, as I thought they would for Goshen under that law, instead of taking from Harmony now and leaving Harmony hanging. Because the district must have recognized that whoever's on that North Campus really wasn't able to provide enough time at all 3 buildings. So I just wonder, will parents be notified about that? Because that was one thing that concerned me as a parent, is that I was not happy to find out that my child did not have a dedicated officer, and I don't think parents at these other schools are aware of that.
Yeah, so there are only Goshen, Centerfield. Actually, Goshen and Centerfield this upcoming year will be the only schools that have a dedicated SRO. My children's school does not have a dedicated SRO. When we looked at this, so data speaking, when we had 10 positions, let me first answer the question about funding. I'm going to be totally transparent with you. I can't answer that question for you. That's a decision that is made collectively between the board and the police. So I want to make sure that I don't speak out of term on that. When I get 10 positions, we looked at, both in collaboration with OCPD and our board, Crestwood Elementary has many more community-based law enforcement situations that have occurred in and around that building than Goshen, including the fact that it has a train station, or a train that goes right in front of it, and also has the Art Center, which now houses students through Kappa, which is our Creative and Performing Arts Academy. So we made the decision between Centerfield, Crestwood, and Goshen. Goshen had 1.9 miles from Harmony to Goshen to with North on that campus. So the reason that we are shifting it to the person going strictly to Goshen with some support to Harmony is to no longer have to apply for a waiver. I know you and I have talked about that. We've had a waiver through the State Security Marshal's office and it was approved based on the fact that a campus, there were no other schools on Goshen's campus, but he approved it based on the fact that it was so close. The reason we felt okay about shifting that this upcoming year is because we'll still have an SRO, whether he's at North High or North Middle, which those two buildings are connected, and Harmony are within 150 yards. So it wasn't that we felt he couldn't handle all three, but we did think that with one SRO at Goshen the entire time, that we would have wanted that person to also be able to be at Harmony because they're on the same schedules. So you can't have, based on our SRO schedules, you can't have somebody from 7 o'clock in the morning till 4:30 in the afternoon. So we have to split up their schedules, and they have schedules that we don't advertise based on, you can imagine why, but that is something that we felt was really important to service both of those schools with that one SRO. One SRO at Goshen all day feels great for Goshen community. I don't doubt that at all. However, the action that or things that need to be done at Goshen all day long for an SRO is pretty minimal compared to what our other SROs do. We have one SRO at Oldham County High School. You got 1,700 kids, and Goshen has about 650. But to meet the law, which states every SRO has to be on, or we have to have one SRO on every campus, we decided to change that over to be a primary for this upcoming year. But I do want, somebody had said it earlier too, and I want to make sure, like, yes, I think we could have 20 and it would be better. I don't think there's any argument to that. It's kind of like, I have parents that come to me and say, I want 15 students in one classroom. Like, absolutely that would be better. But I did go ahead in preparation for tonight. I know somebody spoke about it earlier, just looked at our surrounding counties, which I won't even get into Jefferson County. I'm not going to even comment on that. They have different issues. But, Shelby has 3 SROs for 13 schools. Henry County has 1 for 6. Breckenridge, 1 for 6. Spencer, 2 part-time for 5. Trimble, 1 SRO for 3. And Bullitt SRO, 8 SROs for 23. So it is a challenge to meet expectations for everybody, and I totally understand as a parent how it would be better, but we're doing the very best that we can with the SROs that we have. I'm very thankful to have them, and I hope moving forward you and I have had a great relationship and had a good conversation, and I think it's certainly something, as I told you before, to continue to advocate for. If that's what you feel to be important, I think that's fine.
Thank you. Do you know, does the district have any plans for increased funding to have more SROs or not? Because I haven't heard that discussed. No,
I do not. We have raised, in collaboration with both chiefs here, we've raised the salaries of the SROs. Over the last couple of years, we just wrote a new MOU that has their new salaries in them to help retain the SROs that we have. But in terms of new funding, I sent you, the documentation the other day. The state does provide some funding for that. I think we had $176,000 that it sent, but that covers about 1/4 of what we have received. So I know money is never a great answer, but I know that it has been part of the answer too, and I will encourage you. Board meetings are open to the public, and would encourage you to bring that up with board members, and I'm sure, I don't know if Chief has anything else to add to it, or either Chief, but
if anyone in law enforcement would like to contribute to that, I just wonder how you feel about that as an officer serving multiple schools. I know as a parent we received several notifications this year of threatening incidents where either weapons or threats were made that were investigated, and at least one situation that I'm aware of, there was an extra police presence at the school in my area near Goshen. And so, this is last year, there was a school shooting almost every single day of the year last year. And so I think, parents would like more answers, not just to hear that, well, other counties aren't following the law either, or that we are exceeding minimum standards. So I would like to hear from your perspective, if you would like to see more officers, and do you have...
I don't think they can answer that question. That's a board education question. The board pays for the police officers. We'll provide what the board pays.
So if the board increases funding, you will be able to...
Yes, it's not a county or city-county decision. It's a board decision. Of course, we have to come up with the officers too. And it's not, you know, let's say officers aren't hanging off trees. It's hard, you know,
Right.
hard coming up with people.
Right.
And there are people retire, they don't want to do anything else. And, there's dynamics to the thing that aren't, you know, always readily apparent. You know, getting the personnel, having the funding. People always, I heard you say earlier, and I don't know what school board does, we got some high-paid administrators or something. Well, I can't defend the school board, I don't know. I just know that a statement like that needs more specifics. We have this person right here in this job being paid this amount of money. What are they doing for it? In other words, I'm not trying to be hard on you because I know.
I understand that. I'm just saying that in our district there have been a lot of new positions lately, and the reasoning to parents when they question why don't we have funding, there haven't been clear answers about that. And so parents say, well, why are there funding for certain things and not others? And so that's why, you know, I was asking that question.
My you know, outside of that, because it's board education's not heavily staffed. I'd say it's pretty thin. I mean, as far as I can tell, I mean, I just know from over here at the county government, people assess motives and solutions to us that people working in the system can't get from point A to B as easy as if you're not in the system you think we can. So,
right.
I understand what you're saying, and we all want safety for the
right.
kids.
I think parents want to see safety. You know, they don't want to hear that we're exceeding minimum standards is really.
Well, right, I understand. Yeah. We're setting the pace, actually.
Well, I question the waiver because for my son's school, for example, the law went into effect last year, but we're just now saying that we're going to start complying.
Ma'am, the legislature passes all kinds of laws that they can't.
Well, you know, I contacted a legislator and I asked, I said, you know, I keep hearing that it isn't being funded. And their response to me was, ask Oldham County what they are doing to begin complying with the law. And so that's why I'm here asking.
I understand.
Thank you.
It's sort of passing the buck. You know, they give you these unfunded mandates. You got to do this, you got to do that. You're supposed to find the money for it. But,
thank you.
Oh, thank you very much, too.
I heard a lot of women say they were concerned about like their daughters and things like that with sex trafficking. But does Oldham County Schools plan to expand the sextortion training that was given from the middle school?
So every school had an opportunity to do that last year. Only a few took up on that. I worked with the FBI to get somebody out there. It's always available. It's available at any point in time. So I would encourage you to reach out to your school's principal. Now, we'll say
our school did it.
What's that?
My son's school did it. So.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so the only thing that the FBI did not recommend at the elementary school age.
Right.
They said they could put something together more about, you know, digital footprint, things of that nature. But it was offered to every school on sex trafficking and sextortion because it is an issue. You know, I'll tell you, social media is the biggest problem that I deal with in my role for school safety.
I remember the emails from Mr. Jacobson last year, the last couple years. So it would probably be great if that could maybe be implemented to where the schools had to find time to give it. I know parents could opt out of it.
Yeah,
you know, it wasn't a requirement, but maybe all the schools that didn't do it could maybe participate in this upcoming school year in like a refresher training too. I had a friend of mine asked me to ask you all this. For the SROs, are their communication equipment and their body cameras regularly tested?
We don't wear body cameras inside of school.
Okay.
The SROs do not.
Honestly, I didn't know. I've never really noticed what my SRO wears other than his uniform.
Yeah,
there's a privacy issue.
Purple weaker than that, especially under IDEA law, which is special education. There's a lot of issues with privacy and things with IDEA and FERPA. So.
Okay, that was it. And Buckner Alternative, that back window, that wouldn't be considered bullet resistant.
Yeah, so that back window is not an instructional section.
Oh, it's not?
No. So that, you know about the one that's got the wood on it?
Yeah, I see it like every time I pull back to the practice fields.
So that goes into the back where in old building 3, so that part has no students in it whatsoever.
Okay.
You have to get through another locked door to be able to get into that.
Oh, okay. All
Yeah,
right.
so
Thanks.
there's no students in there.
And maybe one more question if we don't have any others. If you have one, come ahead. Come on, final. Larry, are you coming?
I wasn't sure.
Somebody else like to ask?
I'm just going to be real quick. Excuse me, I got 2 additional topics. A couple women here asked about like security and training and stuff like that. I want to give a shout out to Coach Charlie. He's a boxing instructor over behind Dairy Queen. If you're interested, I just enrolled in his class. It's pretty good if you want to learn about self-defense. I did throw up in the middle of class yesterday, but he let me come back in and finish. And then the other thing, someone was talking about school funding again, and the school officers, and weighing that. And so, just running some quick numbers from Kentucky government website, we have roughly 1,200 schools in Kentucky. Colorado, for example, in the last 2 years alone, for taxation from legalized cannabis, the tax profit alone, not the total economic impact, but tax profit, was over $300 million. If you take $300 million divided by 1,200 schools, that's $243,000 per school that you could fund any number of officers. And I know this body here collectively cannot legalize cannabis, but I think you guys are in a position to help lead that conversation or dialogue. I just wanted to bring that up. So anytime that someone talks about funding and you say that we don't have funding for it, I just disagree with you. We have it there. We're just deciding not to take advantage of it. If you want to talk about how bad it is, that's fine. I'm sure a lot of people in here drink a beer, drink whiskey. That's fine. 4th of July, we are constantly reminded to celebrate responsibly because everyone knows Americans drink and we like to get drunk, and alcohol is orders of magnitude worse than cannabis. That's all. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Hi, Judge. Well, you said earlier we're all among friends here, right?
Right.
So this is a good place to express my frustrations and disappointment. And when I saw public safety, that is the acronym for guns. It's gun safety. It's the guns. June the 6th, I went along with the Kentucky women to Washington, D.C. I met with Mitch McConnell, Rand Paul, Josh Hawley, Haggerty from Tennessee to talk about reinstating this assault weapon ban. Sheriff Wakefield, how long have you been in law enforcement?
34 years.
34 years. So it wasn't unconstitutional in 2014, right? So you wouldn't have a problem with if our federal government reinstituted the assault weapon ban.
As far as I know, there's no order to confiscate any weapons from anyone's home in 2014.
Correct. That is absolutely correct.
Okay.
And so my disappointment is well, number one, I'm disappointed in myself. John Osborne invited me to a public safety meeting in Frankfurt this afternoon. I said, no problem. I talked to Lindsay. I'm going to meet with him here tonight. So I'm disappointed that she's not here. So my question really is what's the narrative that you're going to give back to her? I'm assuming she will follow up as to what we're going to do about assault weapons.
Well, she'll have a chance to look at the video. It's been recorded. I'm not here to defend Lindsay Titchener, although what I was told is that a very important member of her family go to the hospital this afternoon.
Sure, I understand that.
Stressful situation. I don't know. You have to communicate with her. I mean, in that regard, I don't think assault weapons were really our. We talked about several topics here tonight. I don't know how people feel about them. You obviously are
are not.
I've used them, I love them, but they're belong in war.
And we all have, we have to deal with words. You got a rifle. Somebody calls it an assault weapon, somebody else calls it a hunting rifle, somebody says this is for my protection. The lexicon gets moved around depending on who it is that has what agenda they want to, what label they want to hang on this particular thing. So I don't have a report to give her tonight. I don't think any consensus was arrived at anything in that regard here tonight, but she'll have a chance to look at the video and see what was said. This was not primarily a meeting, as you described it earlier, about guns. It was a meeting to talk about safety in the community, and as I tried to say at the beginning, safety can be safety from weapons, safety from drugs, safety from people walking around your community on foot, that coming out here from somewhere else. There's a lot of ways that we need to harden ourselves. That word was used to protect our community from those who would do us harm or steal from us or whatever. So I personally do not have any issue with a weapon that you want to own, legal weapon. I don't have to own one myself like that, but I'm not afraid of you having one. And I don't know what else to say about it.
Well, thank you for that, but you can see where my frustration is. When I was in D.C., Mitch McConnell's office told me, you need to go back to your state legislators. Okay, I contacted John Osborne. I mean, it took him a month to reply to my email, but he did yesterday. And then, Lindsay not being here today. So, it's a problem. And, there's 10 states in America right now that have that assault ban. Not one of them have been declared unconstitutional. So I'm wondering how we can get this thing pushed through and how I can get, everybody knows that our Kentucky senators receive a lot of money from the NRA. And I don't think that's any big secret that, politics being what they are, you got where your donors are, right? So, that's where it is. But my frustration is I go all the way to D.C. for that, someplace where one of our very own Oldham County students, teachers, coaches was murdered last week. And I can't get Washington to listen. So they're telling me to go back to my state. My state's not responsive. This is the forum that I have. I'm going to use it. Thanks.
All right. Thank you for coming up here. Well, I want to thank everybody for coming tonight. Before we wind up, I did want to recognize at least the 2 or 3 other elected county officials who are here. Chris Hounds came in the door after I recognized our magistrates. We have Larry Dodson, Board of Education, here tonight. Just saw Joe Dennis. He stepped out in the hall. I'm not going to be might want to check the ice machine over there and get a glass of ice or something else. But he just didn't know I was going to mention his name. Thank you guys for coming.
Judge, I think you missed Magistrate Hawkins too, who came in.
Did I miss you? Okay, I'm sorry.
She came in after Magistrate Hawkins.
You're right. I thought you were here earlier, Stephanie. I'm sorry. Thank you. Well, thank you all for coming out tonight. We wanted to have this meeting to address any issues that are in our community. As the leader of your county government, I'm very proud of our police department. I'm proud of our sheriff's department, the range police. And constables too. I think we're all trying to do a good job. Doesn't mean we can't be criticized. Doesn't mean we have a corner on all of the good thoughts. I appreciate you wanting to have SRO in every school. It's up to the Board of Education to fund that. If they do, we'll do our best to find. But, sometimes we're running at the last minute we sign contracts today for SROs and, we got enough to get going, but it's not easy even trying to hire somebody. even in that job or any jobs. For some reason, people are just not plentiful when you try to hire them for something. So, but I do thank our panelists for coming tonight. They all graciously agreed to come and subject themselves to any criticism or questions or anything that might come out. We didn't know what would happen, and they've given up an evening tonight, and I thank you all very much for coming and showing your support and faith in our community. And thank you all for coming, and so there comes Joe Dennis back, and I just recognize you. We're going to wind things up here tonight. Thank Tara Long and Kevin and us for helping to put this event together as well. So, thank you. All right.